In React, a component represents a part of the user interface. You may be wondering how. Let's take an example. Imagine this is a site, and over here, this could be your header, this could be your site navigation bar, sidebar. You can say this could be your content area, and this could be footer. All these are part of the user interface, and they could be considered as the components. And within even the components, you can have further more components. So, for example, we could have a logo, we could have a navigation over here, and it's not necessarily that the sidebar remains on the left hand side. It could switch into the right hand side. The best part being that these components are reusable, means you can actually just change their properties, and it could switch from the sidebar from being on the left hand side could switch to the right hand side. In React, there are basically two types of components, one being the stateless functional components and other being the stateful class components. So how does it all works? Means both the types. Let's just basically look at some of the coding examples that I'll give you, which will give you a far more clarity rather than actually just describing them. So we come back to our sample app. We'll remove everything from over here which I don't no longer need. So I have removed that. Let's just, so it's obviously blank. Let's just look at our first type, that is the stateless functional components. To describe them, they are just like simple JavaScript function which literally returns your HTML, and the best part being they can receive your props. Those are basically your properties, and can obviously behave or return the elements as per it. So now let's just create our first component. We go in, we create a new folder called as components. Over here, we'll create a file. We can call it read.js. And then the first thing we need to do it is import React. So import React from React. And then since I mentioned earlier, they're literally JavaScript functions. So we can create one and return HTML. So that could say hello for now. And there's one more statement that you need to add, that is export default and the name of your function. So over here, that once you've done that, actually, I mean, you're seeing nothing happens. Why? Because we haven't actually included that in our main app component. So we will import greet from slash component. Make sure that you have the right spellings, otherwise it may give you an error. Then you have greet.js. That should do the job. And obviously now include that component and we say it. So you should see this working. Okay, whatever, let's suppose you change over here, it's going to automatically change. You can use this component as many times as you want, and it will function very normal. Now, the way we have written, this is the old way of writing the code. Why not to actually use the ES6 way of writing, which is more preferable? So let's just comment this out, and then use the arrow functions over here. So which is constant greet, and we define this. And obviously what we are returning is just the greeting. So we say hello world, for example. In fact, we just had hello world. Why not just to say hello for now? And we save it. And now it works in a similar way. And that's about it for the stateless functional components. In the next step, we will now look at the stateful class components. So to just give you a brief description of what are they are like regular ES6 classes that extends the component. I mean, that extends the React components. To give you an example, so this one has a class, app, extends component. So they are like similar, they are defined in a similar way. And they will have, it is essential to have the render method and a return I mean, in a return HTML function as well, you can say, or sort of like a returning statement. What is the difference between, now you may be wondering if they also return the HTML and function components also returns. So what is the main difference? The first difference being, so both of them obviously can take properties, which is props, can obviously behave, I mean, return as per whatever you program them. But the main difference could be that over here, it can actually have its own state. That's something which we will obviously look ahead when we develop app. But let's start with firstly creating our stateful class component. So we'll go again to the components, create a new file. This time we may call it, let's say, mm, let's just call it maybe welcome. And okay. And now the previously we were just importing React. Now we are going to import the components as well. So components from React library. So that's there. Now we're going to define the class welcome, just like go in and check class, name of the class extends component. So we'll just go in and do that. Extend component, and obviously, okay, so this is good. Again, this will require you to export. So you can write export default welcome. So that's done. Next is, as I mentioned, you need a vendor over here, and it should return some element. So that could be h1 welcome. Okay, so I guess this looks good. We just need to obviously uh, go into our main app and import it very much like the way we imported the other component. Uh, welcome. Okay, this looks good. We haven't used it, so we will use it again. Okay, so it works. So that's so you now know how to actually create components. And one more thing you can actually do it is you can remove this .js. You no longer actually need to reference them, the file names.